Yes, as always, we love it when you're part of the conversation. The WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. You can also tweet at smooth981. Rotus, good morning.
Good morning, Zibby. Good morning to all our listeners out there, viewers, and also to our special guest from MoneyCentral.
Yes, we have a special guest joining us, Patrick Atuanya. He's the publisher of MoneyCentral Media. Good morning, Patrick, and welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Rotus. Good morning.
All right, let's get in.
Yeah, so there's a number of things to discuss this morning. We have inflation for June coming out later today. We've got the CBN reducing the cash reserve ratio for merchant banks. So I want to start with earnings, second quarter earnings from Geregu Power PLC. Patrick, what do you make of the figures? I think you guys have an article in MoneyCentral on your cover story this morning. What do you make of the second quarter earnings from the company?
Okay, so we were quite impressed by the numbers that were released. The market was also a little bit impressed, I guess. The stock hit a 52-week high on Friday because of, I guess, the fundamentals and some of the technicals that's going on with the stock, which is what I'll speak about. So earnings came out quite good for Q2. Cash position was good. Receivables fell, which means they got some of the money that were being owed from outside. The revenue was up 34%, gross profit up 48%. That's for the Q2 quarter. Receivables down by 32 billion. They got 32 billion coming in from Amperium Power. So a lot of times when the power plant send out power, they don't really receive the money immediately. But the good thing is they were able to get this money, 32 billion naira. So that helped their liquidity position. Trade receivables as a whole fell by 22.4%. They were also able to repay long-term borrowings, which is another positive. It shows the cash generation capacity of the firm. So they repaid long-term borrowings. They repaid 38 billion in long-term borrowings. So all in all, a very solid result, and we're quite happy that the only pure play listed Genco on the NGX is doing quite well. So I think that's a positive overall for the Nigerian economy.
Looking forward, you guys also wrote that you see the outlook on the stock. You see some upside, and part of it is the deal signed, or at least there was a picture, of course, with Otodola, Akinwumi Adesina, and Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. This power deal that they're looking at with Lagos. So is that part of the outlook for the upside on the stock?
Okay, so there are a couple of things we're looking at. We're tracking. We've actually been tracking the stock since January, if you remember, or late last year. So one of it is you have a number of catalysts that are beginning to come together. So I'll mention some of it. That's on the fundamental side. So you have, first of all, is the only pure play listed Genco. So I mean, if fund managers are looking from within and outside the country, they are looking for exposure to utilities. So it's the only stock they are going to actually deploy money to. So that's one. That's in the Nigerian market. That's one. The second one is they have a plan to acquire an NIPP asset, which will be Geregu 2. Now, why we're positive about it is, there was a change in power in Nigeria, in political power in Nigeria in May. And we believe that the new administration, President Tinubu, will supercharge privatization. If you know, those assets they've been tried to be privatized since the Jonathan era, 2013, 2014. trying to sell NIPP. Nothing has happened. Buhari came in, nothing happened. So we think it's going to be a matter of a year max, and those assets will be sold because the new government is looking for money. It doesn't believe in holding on to those assets, and those assets are actually newer than the Geregu one. So they're brand new assets. Geregu one was a legacy brownfield really asset of the federal government, which Geregu Power bought and has been able to turn around. But Geregu 2 is actually going to be brand new. So I think that is going to, and they've set aside about 40 billion naira to bid for those assets. So they have the funds to bid for those assets. I believe they're going to get those assets. So that's pretty much going to double, almost triple their revenues if once they get that asset under their belt. But the most impressive one for us is the one that was announced on just last week, a partnership between the Lagos State government, the State Grid Corporation of China, Geregu Power, and African Development Bank. So what this is going to do is bring in 3,000 megawatts more transmission capacity into the Lagos area. So for context, Lagos is only getting about 500 megawatts today, right? So you're going to have like 600% jump, Lagos is where the action is when it comes to the power sector. They have the most profitable discos. They have the biggest companies, the major factories, people that are willing, both on the industrial and the residential side, people that are willing to pay for power. So we believe it will be a game changer also for the earnings of Geregu once they're able to pull this off. So that will be a sixfold. So I mean, if the whole country is probably doing about 5,000, 6,000 megawatts, and they can get this 3,000 megawatts of transmission capacity, plus supplying that power into Lagos, then you can imagine how much revenue upside comes with that. So that's for the fundamental side of the story. On the technicals, when you look at the stock, it's actually been market time, right? It's kind of consolidating above its 10-day, 20-day, 100-day moving average, and it's just waiting to go to the next leg of a upside. We would probably see like 700, 750, then get into 1,000. Once some of these plans begin to get into focus. I mean, if they get the NIPP, then the stock is already a 1,000 naira stock on that alone.
Well, what was NIPP? Power.
Integrated
power.
Yeah.
Power assets. Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Real quick. I just want to touch on the CBN. Thanks for the breakdown on the stock. The reduction in CRR, cash reserve ratio, for the merchant banks.
Yeah.
Why not for the commercial banks? What we're seeing with CRR there?
Okay, so I think it's just a first step. Maybe the CBN is trying to use the merchant banks as a test run for the commercial banks. We believe the CRR above board is too high for the banks. The banks today cannot perform their intermediation job in the economy, right? Most banks today, their liquidity is trapped in the CBN, so they can't really deploy a lot of money towards the productive parts of the economy. Most reports we've seen is that the actual CRR is even quite higher. That effective CRR is quite higher than what the CBN is saying. So we think it's just a first step towards because the merchant banks are a little bit they don't have they're much smaller than their balance sheets are much smaller than the commercial banks balance sheets. So they want to try with the merchant banks and then maybe extend it to the rest of the banking names. What you need to understand is that the CBN has used the CRR as a liquidity and inflation management tool because of the poor transmission mechanism for the MPR. So they use it to mop up liquidity from the system. Well, it's a crude tool. I mean, it's a very crude tool, and is not what it was really meant for, that they're using it for. So they have a little bit of sympathy for the CBN. They are fighting inflation on one hand, but they also need to begin to unravel some of the heterodox policies of the former governor, CBN governor, which was Godwin Emefiele. So they are going to be a little bit ginger. They're going to taking it one step at a time. They won't bring out that wall of liquidity to hit the system at once. So I think it's a way to, okay, let's see, merchant banks, they can fund, they can, they deal directly with trade facilitation and other parts of the economy. So let's give them some relief. Let's see how they can be positive, bring some positive impact on the economy, and then let's see what that does to inflation, and then let's see if we can, provide some more relief for the general rest of the banks. They worked on themselves into a policy tightrope, so they will have to walk back on it gradually.
Great stuff, Patrick. Oh, great stuff. We're almost out of time. We need less than a minute to go. You mentioned inflation. We're expecting it later today. I think 22.4 is where we were for May. Fuel subsidies were removed in June and so on. So what do you think we're going to see for the June numbers when those ones drop?
You're probably going to see something close to 27% year on year. A little bit lower month on month. I think inflation is going to be quite high until we begin to get the effect of the base effect that will begin to kick in by sometime this year, sometime next year. So when you probably see it fall to maybe 14-15%. But speaking of this is a personal finance show, so I think what our listeners should be thinking about, where are they going to deploy their money, right? So if inflation is going to be so sticky and so high, how can you have inflation, high inflation adjusted returns? So we still think the stock market is going to, specific names in the stock market are going to beat inflation this year. I think bonds, you're not going to do too well buying treasury bills or bonds because they're still, a lot of them are still below, the rates you get are still below inflation. And if you can afford it, real estate, of course, is always a very good hedge against inflation. But the stock market is big. There's couple of good names have already done. I mean, a lot of the banks have done 70-80% already, and a few of the other stocks. So I think the market will continue to go higher this year, and we'll close higher than we are by December. So I think investors should, those that have exposure should hold on, and those that don't have should begin to nibble a bit at some of the blue chip names.
Patrick, really great, informative segment with you today. Really appreciate you joining us. Patrick Atuanya, the publisher for MoneyCentral Media Limited. Thank you so much for your time, man. Really, thank you very much. I'll have to have you back. I'll have to figure out how to have you back in the future.
Thank you, Rotus. Thank you, guys.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. And thanks, Rotus. Have a brilliant day ahead.
All right. Take it easy.
And that's it for Business Express. Do stay with us. There is a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.